It's too stressful, and frankly, I do not have the nerve.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
The right to buy Cosby
rights.
sweaters?
An unfinished Disney project, a star's emotional meltdown behind closed doors, and the shocking studio pivot that left everyone reeling. When people first heard that Disney would be doing a live-action remake of Snow White, the reaction was electric. Why wouldn't it be?
Minecraft in the United States in one weekend made more money than Snow White has made globally after 3 weekends.
After all, Snow White launched an entire legacy back in 1937, enchanting generations as Disney's first full-length animated feature. Yet, whispers soon emerged something was amiss. Though the cast was star-studded, rumors of clashing visions and drastic script rewrites began to swirl. At the center of it all was Rachel Zegler, a rising talent who championed a thoroughly modern spin on the classic princess.
You know what's interesting about all this is that the only person waiting in line to see Snow White was Rachel Zegler.
She was determined to make Snow White braver and more self-reliant than ever, an approach that initially thrilled the executives. Nobody expected that this same creative boldness would ignite a firestorm of controversy, leading to frantic behind-the-scenes chaos. By the time the internet caught wind of mounting tension, the project had already undergone multiple transformations, testing the patience of fans and Disney insiders alike. Yet even that drama pales in comparison to what came next. Rumors of a brand new Snow White film starring the much-beloved Jenna Ortega. Yes, you read that right. In the middle of filming Rachel Zegler's version, the studio allegedly started planning another take on the iconic princess, one that would be more true to the original. That revelation only fueled the speculation. Was Disney about to bury a multi-million-dollar production just because it had veered off course?
In contrast to Snow White, I was really expecting the Minecraft movie to bury Snow White. I was expecting it to bury it, and it has.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind to the beginning. The moment Rachel Zegler nabbed the coveted role and the entire internet erupted with excitement. Because it's in those early moments that we glimpse why so many had high hopes, and why disappointment would ultimately cut so deep. When word got out that Rachel Zegler was set to star as Snow White, fans of all backgrounds celebrated the casting. She was fresh off other attention-grabbing roles and had a vocal fan base charmed by her down-to-earth persona. Having a Latina actress helm such an iconic fairy tale felt like a forward-thinking decision, one that might finally showcase diversity in a role historically defined by 1930s standards.
Theater for her own movie. She's literally the only person there.
Even better, Zegler didn't hold back in interviews, spoke passionately about wanting to empower Snow White with modern ideals. No more helpless damsel shot. This princess would chart her own path. In those early days, the project exuded promise. Disney insiders teased that the film's storyline would be updated to address modern audiences' tastes. Rather than revolve around a wide-eyed girl waiting for a prince, the plot would highlight her personal growth, resilience, and the lessons she learns from her woodland companions. They even teased a more complex romantic angle. According to the scuttlebutt, the love interest's behavior bordered on obsessive, an interpretation so intense that some corners of the fandom labeled it stalkerish. This twist intrigued some fans while making others uneasy. After all, the original prince barely had any lines. Here, he was set to become something far darker and more complicated. Despite these misgivings, everyone seemed determined to press ahead with an edgy, contemporary Snow White. Zegler's social media was abuzz with her excitement. Photos from costume fittings, glimpses of script pages, and playful references to certain dwarfs whose story arcs might take unexpected turns. Then the first major red flag appeared, a sudden wave of script revisions. Writers came and went, each trying to reconcile the classic vibe with the push for modernity. While this sort of flux is normal in Hollywood, it set the stage for more troubling developments. Unbeknownst to the public, creative tensions would soon escalate behind the scenes, challenging Zegler's once unshakable optimism. Inside the studio walls, the Snow White team tried to balance tradition and reinvention. Greta Gerwig even dipped her toes into the screenplay at one point, hoping to infuse the story with a grounded, authentic tone. Directors clashed over how whimsical or gritty the adaptation should be. Disney executives, led in part by CEO Bob Iger, Iger demanded both a crowd-pleasing adventure and a narrative that aligned with corporate values. Meanwhile, schedule delays plagued the filming process. Initially touted for a 2024 release, the project slipped into 2025. Each new reshoot triggered ripple effects in budgeting, casting availability, and, most critically, morale. Rumors soon painted a volatile picture on set. Rachel Zegler, fiercely protective of her character's moral backbone, advocated for Snow White to be shown as strong-willed and unwaveringly kind. Her co-star Gal Gadot, meanwhile, portrayed a darker, evil queen than anything audiences had previously imagined. While that might sound thrilling, friction reared its head. According to whispers, both leads occasionally vied for creative control, leading to tense standoffs during filming. Tensions reached a boiling point during the shoot for the climactic confrontation. Certain retellings claim they spent weeks on a single sequence, struggling to reconcile the comedic, romantic, and dark fantasy tones swirling around the script. The same rumors allege that Zegler clashed with the production team over how certain lines were delivered, while Gadot reportedly grew impatient with the never-ending rewrites. By the time filming wrapped for the day, many crew members scurried away from the main set, eager to avoid any drama that might erupt between these two powerhouses. Meanwhile, social media commentary was starting to get ugly. Longtime Disney aficionados took issue with how frequently Zegler seemed to question the original film's innocence and aesthetic. Her well-intentioned comments about updating 1937 tropes for the modern era were often twisted into an accusation. She hates the classic Snow White. Some fans pushed back, worried that this beloved story was being turned into something edgy for edginess' sake. Even so, the general public had no idea how drastically the wheels were starting to come off behind the curtain. By mid-production, it became impossible to conceal the chaos from the world. Release date delays piled up, fueling outside speculation that the film was mired in trouble. As each date shifted, Disney's official line remained diplomatic. "We're ensuring we get every detail right." Behind closed doors, though, many suspected the rewriting process never truly ended. Every few weeks, new input from the top brass arrived, forcing the script to pivot yet again. Rachel Zegler took a proactive stance, conducting interviews to reassure fans. She expressed enthusiasm for a more courageous, forward-thinking princess, one who wouldn't rely on a borderline stalkerish suitor to save her. Yet her remarks sometimes landed poorly. Hardcore Disney purists read them as dismissive or even disrespectful toward the 1937 masterpiece. Before long, tabloids pounced on every slip of the tongue. Message boards lit up with heated debates about whether Zegler, in her quest to modernize Snow White, was rejecting everything that made the original so timeless. Around this time, a wave of fan-captured photos from the set leaked online, exposing a hodgepodge of aesthetics, some comedic, some grim, and some reminiscent of a Renaissance fair meets big-budget spectacle. The disjointed visuals only intensified suspicions that the movie was losing its cohesive identity. People began whispering about the film's internal meltdown. Was it the star, the script, or was the entire production simply unraveling under pressure? Still, no one outside the tightest industry circles was prepared for the next development, the one that would see Disney apparently considering a second, entirely separate Snow White production. And that bombshell would land squarely at Rachel Zegler's feet, knocking the wind out of her once boundless enthusiasm. Suddenly, the rumor mill exploded. Disney was courting Jenna Ortega for another live-action Snow White. At first, the reports sounded too wild to be true. Would Disney really invest in two simultaneous retellings of the same iconic fairy tale? Yet multiple leaks and social media posts corroborated the story. The new version would allegedly be more faithful to the original 1937 narrative, a kinder, gentler Snow White, free of the modern baggage that was stirring controversy. When Rachel Zegler got wind of these rumblings, insiders say she was devastated. She had spent the better part of 2 years pouring herself into reimagining Snow White for a new generation. Now, it felt like the studio might be disowning her creative decisions. People close to the production whispered that she confronted executives behind closed doors demanding clarity. Was her film being tossed aside in favor of a safer bet? What followed was the meltdown that would become the stuff of Hollywood legend. Accounts vary. Some claim she burst into tears and stormed off set during final pickup shots. Others say she kept it together in front of cameras but let her frustration explode in private meetings. Either way, the sense of betrayal was profound. Her dream role was slipping through her fingers, overshadowed by rumors that Disney had lost faith in her version. In the wake of all this, talk of a potential quiet release, where the 2025 film would arrive in theaters or possibly straight to streaming with little fanfare, spread like wildfire. People questioned whether Disney wanted to bury the project to avoid negative blowback. Internet commentators speculated that the controversy surrounding the stalkerish suitor angle or the clashing performances had simply become too big a liability. Meanwhile, Jenna Ortega's name ignited fierce debate. Some fans hailed her as a perfect fit, while Zegler loyalists saw her as a safe replacement, chosen to wipe away the memory of the original star's rebellious take on the material. As Disney's alleged plan to start fresh leaked, the internet buzzed with relentless speculation. Jenna Ortega, already a fan favorite for her work in other high-profile projects, remained silent. Her team refused to confirm or deny any involvement in a new Snow White. That silence only fueled chatter. Was Ortega the studio's secret weapon, set to save the brand after months of negative press? Or was this entire rumor a smokescreen? To pressure Rachel Zegler into towing the corporate line? From a distance, it almost looked like a perfectly orchestrated PR ballet, where Zegler came under fire for her outspoken interviews. Ortega was known for a more discreet approach. Some claimed she was the safer choice, someone less likely to stir the pot by suggesting the prince was a borderline stalker or by bluntly criticizing the 1937 film's outdated nuances. Fans with nostalgic attachments to the original Snow White welcomed the possibility of a gentler retelling that would preserve the innocence they cherished. Others felt conflict, wishing Rachel's adaptation could get a fair chance to stand on its own merits. Meanwhile, the troubles in the first production only grew. The crew grumbled about endless continuity changes. Key scenes, some of which Rachel Zegler believed were crucial to Snow White's moral arc, were reportedly cut at the 11th hour. Insiders speculated that Disney was already laying the groundwork for a patchwork release, hoping to salvage what they could. The fear was that by the time this film hit screens, if it did at all, its vision would be so compromised that hardly anyone would recognize the original intent. That fear seemed to crystallize into despair for Zegler herself. Industry gossip claimed she fell into a state of emotional exhaustion. After the meltdown, she maintained a lower profile online, skipping interviews or only offering restrained soundbites that avoided direct mention of the rumored Ortega film. The once bright-eyed star appeared to be grappling with the grim realization that the story she poured her heart into might never truly see the light of day as intended. As the internet does, fan reactions polarized into extremes. Team Rachel argued that she was an artist trying to modernize a classic, only to be punished by corporate fear and nostalgic purists who didn't want any changes. They viewed the controversy as a smear campaign meant to silence a young star who dared to question old-fashioned tropes. Team Disney, on the other hand, insisted that Zegler's outspoken criticisms of the original film alienated fans who expected a respectful tribute to a cherished classic. Many also claimed that calls for a stalkerish love interest had crossed a line, ignoring the fundamental sweetness that made Snow White so iconic in the first place. Amid this uproar, the production slogged on. Final pickups, re-edits, and hushed test screenings all took place under a cloud of speculation. Leaks hinted that early test audiences found the tone inconsistent, darker in some parts, comedic in others, with a romantic subplot that felt oddly dissonant. Disney execs, already wary of sinking even more money into a troubled project, reportedly held frantic meetings about distribution strategies. Would a quieter streaming rollout help them dodge negative headlines? Or would it look like they were ashamed of their own film? Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler's meltdown became a talking point in its own right. Entertainment blogs gossiped that she'd had tearful conversations with higher-ups, practically begging for clarity on whether her film would be overshadowed by the rumored Ortega remake. A few tabloids even painted her as difficult, though close friends fiercely defended her, insisting she had done nothing wrong except care too much. It was heartbreak, not hubris. Fans also noticed how little press coverage Gal Gadot was giving about the film. She remained on the perimeter, occasionally dropping neutral comments like, "I loved exploring the evil queen," without referencing any of the turmoil. Her star power remained intact. If Snow White underperformed, she could easily pivot to another blockbuster. Zegler didn't have that same safety net, making her meltdown all the more understandable. In the midst of this emotional turmoil, another controversy flared. Some fans objected to any deviation from the traditional Snow White image, calling out the choice of a Colombian-American lead. They claimed Disney was changing too, much fueling debates about representation. Supporters of Zegler clapped back, praising her fresh perspective and condemning critics as unwilling to embrace inclusivity. These culture war skirmishes only added more fuel to the already blazing fire. And now, after so many rumors, so many heartbreaks, we've reached a precarious impasse. Disney remains silent on whether it will present Rachel Zegler's film in theaters exclusively on Disney+, or at all. Insiders whisper about test screenings that went so-so. They also whisper about the unstoppable wave of hype for Jenna Ortega's rumored retelling, which might restore the original film's whimsical charm. Now the question becomes, will we ever see the version of Snow White that started all this drama? If the final cut does surface, it could appear as a heavily reworked shadow of its initial concept. It's possible that the controversial elements, like the love story that had folks labeling the prince a stalker, will be toned down or removed entirely. Or perhaps it will be scattered with mismatched scenes, the product of so many rewrites that no single creative vision stands out. In an industry that thrives on spectacle, it's almost fitting that Snow White's journey from sweet maiden to modern hero might end as a cautionary tale. For Rachel Zegler, the meltdown signaled a harsh lesson. A star's passion can collide head-on with the corporate machine. She believed wholeheartedly in reinventing Snow White for modern sensibilities, but that dream may have been undone by an audience wary of radical changes, plus a studio determined to protect its legacy. While some blame her remarks for souring the film's prospects, others see it as a failing of Disney executives who never firmly committed to a clear direction, leaving the adaptation adrift in endless reshoots and half-formed ideas. Meanwhile, the potential Jenna Ortega film has the advantage of arriving without the baggage of controversy, at least for now. Fans who bemoaned the edgy approach will likely embrace a more classic retelling, even if it's uncertain when or how it will materialize. By the time it does, the noise around Zegler's meltdown may have subsided, or it may still linger as a cautionary echo warning studios about the risks of tinkering too aggressively with a beloved story. Whatever happens, one thing is certain. The saga surrounding this Snow White adaptation has already made Hollywood history. It's a stark reminder that even the most iconic properties can falter when corporate ambitions, creative visions, and fan expectations fall out of alignment. Rachel Zegler's meltdown, whether viewed as a footnote or a defining moment, embodies the heartbreak of investing your soul in a dream, only to see it slip through your grasp. And perhaps that's the final lesson here. Sometimes, in the grand dance of cinema, a passion project can morph into a perfect storm of competing interests, controversy, and corporate backpedaling. Snow White might awaken in a brand new form, spearheaded by a fresh face, but the emotional imprint of this behind-the-scenes saga will never fully vanish. After all, fairy tales can turn dark without warning. And in Hollywood, you're only ever one rumor away from learning how quickly a dream can unravel. No magic mirror needed. And there you have it. A sweeping look at how one of Disney's most prized fairy tales descended into controversy, rewrites, and heartbreak. Rachel Zegler's ambition to transform Snow White into a modern heroine collided with studio caution, nostalgic fans, and swirling rumors of a second adaptation starring Jenna Ortega. The meltdown she reportedly endured stands as a testament to the emotional stakes involved. We're left wondering whether her version will fade into obscurity or someday emerge, battered but still breathing, in the cinematic universe it once hoped to dazzle. But the final chapter may be yet unwritten. Hollywood is unpredictable, and sometimes even the biggest fiascos can bounce back with the right combination of marketing, editing, and a bit of behind-the-scenes humility. Whichever path Disney takes, the story of Rachel Zegler's Snow White might serve as a lasting reminder. No matter how cherished a fairy tale is, modernizing it involves more than good intentions. It demands a clear vision, creative unity, and perhaps a sprinkle of that old Disney magic. Will we see it someday? That remains to be seen. Until then, the legacy of this turbulent project reminds us all that, in the world of showbiz, no happily ever after is ever guaranteed.